Suikoden V is JRPG royalty. Coming into the finale of the mainline Suikoden series, this title was the only one that I had zero experience with. It was with a measured amount of anticipation that I took the steps into the final chapter of my Retrospective series. This was the only title that seemed to have an equal to, if not more impassioned fanbase than Suikoden 2, and we all know how I felt about that game. So going into my playthrough, I was genuinely curious if this title would live up to all of the hype and fanfare that I've seen for it over the years, and if it would be a true return to form for a series that had stumbled just a bit with their foray into the 3D based era of the PlayStation 2 console. You see, while many felt that Suikoden 3 was overall a decent addition into the franchise, it can certainly be said that many of its attempted innovation in both gameplay and storytelling left many fans of the older title feeling alienated and nonplussed about the direction the series would be heading in. It began a subtle splintering of the community that only magnified with Suikoden 4. Moving into Suikoden 4, we have a much more updated and mature graphical and art aesthetic. However, its overall package left a lot to be desired from most fans of the series, and even to the most casual JRPG fan, it was clear that this game is certainly a crossroads for the series in more ways than one. However, fresh coming off my playthrough of Suikoden 5, I feel confident saying that Suikoden 4 laid the foundations for many elements that we see in Suikoden 5 and might be considered a necessary stepping stone on the way to greatness. As a reminder, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so if you dig Suikoden RPG content, please subscribe for more weekly content. So let's jump into the final chapter of our Suikoden retrospectives and see why Suikoden 5 could be easily considered to be the best in the series, and see if it was up to an impossible task of uniting a divided player base. Let's go. For this review, we'll be going back to a more traditional sectional breakdown for the many aspects of Suikoden 5, including the following elements: story, gameplay, music, and legacy. Let's kick this thing off starting with the story of Suikoden 5. Now you guys know I'm not one to shy away from critiquing the narratives of games I love, so believe me when I say that Suikoden 5 is a return to form for the series and easily ties Suikoden 2 in terms of its grand scale and overall emotional impact by the time you watch the final cutscenes and the credits start rolling. The story is a sprawling, ambitious narrative encompassing several new lands of the Suikoden universe, whilst being populated by some of the best characters in the entirety of the series. This title gives a lot of us Suikoden lore monsters a lot to chew on when it comes to fleshing out information regarding some of the mysteries with the Lost Sindar race, and more insight into the power and behavior of the 27 true runes. The setting for the 5th installment in the Suikoden series takes place in the southern section of the Suikoden world of Solfalena, a matriarchy home to the powerful Sun rune, one of the 27 true runes. We take the reins in the story as the crown prince of the royal family of Falena. When we land into the story, the prince's little sister Lim is soon to be married off, so we accompany her with all the traditions that come with the forthcoming ceremony. This allows us the unique opportunity to see the setting firsthand and to observe the machinations of the current political sphere that we're thrust into. From start to finish, this game consistently does an exceptional job within its thematic messaging regarding family, unity, duty, power, and my personal favorite throughout the entirety of the Suikoden series, the power to inspire. However, there is one major theme that is recurring throughout most of the major antagonists in the story, and that is the idea of divine right and imposing one's will to shape the future as they see fit. This game does a terrific job at laying the foundation for eventual conflicts, and shows several major plot strings from the opening chapters that help to keep the players invested throughout their playthrough. As per usual, things go awry and we're sent on a grand journey to reclaim this lost kingdom. Think along the lines of Dune if you've seen that movie. Also, speaking on the matriarchy, that is one thing about Suikoden 5 that was a welcome if not unexpected change of pace. A lot of the main characters are female leads, from your strategists to your admirals to the ever mysterious Zarase. All of the people who guide our young hero are women, and I think this change helps to distinguish this new setting. I thought it was an interesting choice for the series, and I appreciated them switching up the established formula. The world of Solfalena is without a doubt the most realized locale within all of the Suikodenverse, and a lot of that has to do with the exceptional designs for both the characters and towns alike. One major element that I absolutely loved about Suikoden 5 is that it has a sense of personality throughout. Each setting and character are distinct and vibrant and transcend the typical depictions and caricatures that previous installments had issues with. From the ever-womanizing Kao to the enigma that is Sarase, and my personal favorites, the cunning Oboro detective agency, this title carries with it many of the series' best characters. In short, these all feel like real people, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is surely the most mature of all the Suikoden titles, with some beyond questionable dialogue choices. There are some sequences that seem to get more and more insane as the seconds pass. Wait, what exactly did you mean by that? And some absolutely unsavory characters aren't shy about expressing how they genuinely feel. Do we really need this guy as one of our 108 stars of destiny? The characters that inhabit this world feel as lively and realized as ever in the series, and with the addition of generally superb voice acting, you get a real sense for the writer's intention for each character, and the complete immersion into both these characters and this new world becomes as easy as breathing air throughout your playthrough. As far as locales, towns like Hod and Lakar have a distinct design and flow to them, and even the home base that you acquire has a distinct visual aesthetic unlike anything else in the series. This title in many ways feels like a natural evolution of what you would expect out of the Suikoden series. There are real-life consequences and implications for each major action that you take, and this decision-making allows for more player autonomy throughout the narrative and helps provide a unique and memorable experience for anyone going through this title. So as you can see, I was quite taken with this game's story and overall conclusion. However, there were more than a few areas I think could have been handled in a bit more of a streamlined manner, starting with the dialogue. There are numerous conversations that go on for about twice as long as they have any right to, and definitely add some unnecessary padding to the game's overall length. And I imagine this was done to help fill out character development and to really give us a genuine feel for these characters' identity. However, it really became quite tedious after a while when most conversations never seemed to end. The only other major call out that I had was that at times, this game seems to buckle under its narrative ambition, and that it keeps introducing new locales to visit almost 40 to 50 hours into the game. When one could be expecting to wrap up the journey, there are still 1 to 2 more cities to visit and character arcs to get through. I think this particular problem could have been fixed by reducing the overall number of cities that we have to visit, maybe trimming down 1 or 2 of them, or reducing the overall amount of time it takes to tackle each segment. This is a meaty RPG, and at times it feels a bit like a grind fest. And yes, maybe this is because I'm coming straight off of Suikoden 4, which had the exact opposite issue, but I just felt it nonetheless. Overall, the story is a very strong 9 out of 10, damn good overall, and we'll discuss a bit more in our spoiler section. Now we have gameplay and combat. This is one area that I believe Suikoden 5 comfortably eclipses every other mainline title that come before it. From typical battles to the evolution of one-on-one duels and major battles, this title is pushing the series past its traditional RPG pinnings in fresh and innovative ways. Now coming off of Suikoden 3 and 4, I could tell that the developers were looking for a cohesive and expressive ways to deliver an engaging combat system. While 3 had its issues with the pairing system and the curious decision to implement friendly fire, it was certainly a victim of major growing pains going to a new platform. With Suikoden 4, it seemed that everything that we previously loved about the traditional battle system had been stripped away to the barest of bones. Now only having 4 team members during combat, even the magic took on this almost muted tone, and it never felt satisfying to engage with in any sense. Going into Suikoden 5, the developers have taken the time to develop a system that's equally engaging and always evolving with you as you play the game. We're back to having 6 characters for each battle, with the addition of the brilliant tactics system, which allows you to change the formation of your characters, which can serve to give you the strategic edge in battle and allows for an infinite amount of experimentation regarding team comps. The vast majority of playstyles have representation, and honestly you can make any variety of characters work. You want to have 4 beavers in your team? Let's do it. You want to have a giant turtle and a snake? Let's do it. Or if you just want to say screw it all and put Richard on point in the arrow formation and watch this happen for 80% of your encounters. Moving on to one-on-ones, this is one area that I initially didn't like when I first started playing, but as time went on, I grew to absolutely love it. It gave me the same vibe as watching a vintage karate film back in the day, and the characters' animations are beautifully janky as they mow through their opponent. As with previous titles, you have a trio of options between attack, special attack, and block, and the goal of the duel is to interpret enemies' incoming dialogue to make informed decisions about what is coming. However, they've wisely added in a timer that makes the player think quickly on their feet, as opposed to pausing the game and looking at a strategy guide to respond with the best action. Like I said, this game is all about evolving the franchise forward, and this is one addition that in retrospect felt like a bit of a no-brainer. In closing in the combat section, we have major combat. This is the one major tenet from previous combat engines that has been completely upended for better and worse. You see, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the major battles in this game. Let me explain what I mean. Major combat is no longer a static turn-based function that we've seen in previous titles. Now it plays out a bit like a mini match of Age of Empires with enemy units moving to attack you from the moment the match starts, and this wouldn't be much of an issue if the game didn't have you consistently fighting on multiple fronts, both land and sea. It creates this endless mad dash to see what's going on around the field, ensure that no units are in danger, and that no enemies have suddenly started to engage you unexpectedly. Now generally I wouldn't mind this, but in a game where you have the risk of permadeath and the potential to lose the best ending after 50 to 60 hours of gameplay, it caused me to take an almost surgical approach to each major battle, which in turn caused them to be a major time drain. Some of the later encounters had me taking around 30 to 40 minutes per battle, which really made me start to dread seeing the screen. And that's not to say that they are difficult or unwinnable, they're just A, way too many of them, and B, way too much stuff going on during them. Major battles have always been one of the components within the battle engine that have seen pretty radical redesigns in each iteration, and I have to say that I enjoyed the previous iterations much more. Even if I don't swear by the ship combat in Suikoden IV like many fans do, I have to say even that is handled much better than this. And that's not to say that some of these major battles can't be enjoyable, but they overstay their welcome quite quickly, become an unnecessary tedium to get through. And moving on to general gameplay mechanics, we have the return of the skill system from Suikoden 3 with the addition of epic skills, which allow you to stack the benefits of multiple skill types into a single slot and can lead into some absolutely devastating damage potential late game with the right permutations. This game also allows up to 4 additional slots for characters for more effortless team swapping post-battle, which is a very welcome addition for grind sessions in some of the game's longer dungeons. In conclusion, the combat is a major step forward for the franchise in almost all ways, and it feels like outside of major battles, they finally got the formula correct, 9 out of 10. Finally, the king is back. I'll admit I had my reservations regarding the music going into my playthrough, knowing that the genius level compositions of Miss Miki Higashino were a relic of a past time and weren't coming back. This is the area that Suikoden 5 more so than any other kind of blew my mind. The music in this title is so fucking good. The OST is littered with iconic tracks, and the diversity and range of the compositions haven't been this good since Suikoden 1 and 2. Listening to something as unique and catchy as Oboro's detective theme is guaranteed to give you all the serotonin you need to make it through a full calendar week. The compositions are that good. The composers Takashi Watanabe and Koss did an absolutely stellar job at properly tying the emotion to the narrative being laid out in front of us, while giving us some of the series' best battle and character theme. Many of the updated remixes to classic themes such as the War Room song help accentuate the tone of Suikoden 5 and help to further distinguish it from its predecessors. Really boys, my hat's off to you. Music effortlessly gets a 10 out of 10. Now before we jump into the final legacy section, I want to talk about some spoilers. Now while I was pretty enamored with the overall story of Suikoden 5, it does have some, well, let's call them issues. To start with, the motivation of the antagonists, the Godwin family. They both stated on separate occasions that their motivation for their coup and the takeover for Sophalena was to ensure a brighter future, and that the current rulers were too weak to do all that was necessary. This seems diametrically opposed to what we're seeing in the opening chapters of the story, where Ferry, the leader of the Queen's Knights, is shown to be an extremely shrewd man and has already taken measures against both opposing houses Godwin and Barrows, and knows that unrest is a certainty in their new future. And then you have Queen Arstad literally scorching entire cities for perceived transgressions, utilizing the Sun Rune's insane power. These aren't weak or incompetent people. Lord Godwin does spit out some gobbledygook about being seduced by the Sun Rune's power, but it really feels nonsensical when you take more than 1 minute to contemplate father and son's motivation. The other main issue that I had with them was that neither of them come across as intimidating opponents, and they fall into one of the major antagonist tropes of sending peons to tackle our hero only to have them handily defeated. In essence, the ivory tower approach until the end of the game. I have to say I appreciate the more hands-on approach of say a Luca Blight, Joey, or even the Masked Bishop from Suikoden 3. The approach that they took gave me the feeling of playing Final Fantasy XII, watching Vayne pull the strings in the shadow, and more of a political demonstration of might than an outright physical or magical strength. In the end, it made me view them as one of the weaker overall antagonists within the mainline series. And this leads into my other main issue with the conclusion of the game. Within the final cutscene, every major villain is set up to have a sympathetic framing that just didn't work for me. Literally, look at this. Why are they being presented like they're good guys now? What the fuck? These people try to kill you. What the fuck? Multiple times. It seems to marginalize all the events that you just went through over the course of 50 hours. And then we have the Xyleeds issue. I genuinely despise this last second heel turn from her within the 23rd hour of the game's narrative. She has literally nothing to gain from this betrayal, as any strategy or machination that she might have devised easily could have been implemented by Lucretia, as she's shown herself to be a genius level tactician throughout the game. Don't get me wrong, Xyleeds has plenty to be disgruntled about. However, if they're going to go this route, I think the game should have done a much better job at sowing seeds of dissent throughout the earlier chapters and emphasizing Xyleeds' frustration with the status quo on a much deeper level. The way it was laid out makes it feel like nothing more than an afterthought, or worse yet, a contrived shock factor for the playing audience. After wrapping up my playthrough of Suikoden 5, it finally made sense why I would so often see this game near the top of the list when it came to best Suikoden titles, and all of the passion and fanfare that accompanied it throughout the internet. This is truly a special game. It's a generational step forward for the series, offering new and complex ideas and mechanics, while also having a laser focus on character development and telling a tight narrative throughout its playtime. This is the title that showed me that Suikoden could have a sincere future even without the North Star of its series creators. It's that damn good. Unfortunately, following the debacle that was Suikoden 4, this title was met to a fraction of the sales, leading to Namco essentially shelving this project indefinitely, with only one subsequent release for 3DS since. While I, like many of us, are waiting to see how Eiyuden Chronicle pans out, I am struck with a certain sense of melancholy that perhaps my favorite RPG series of all time is locked in some back room never to see the light of day again, which is a true travesty considering how impressive Suikoden 5 ended up being. In the end, I'm just glad to have experienced this title. The good effortlessly outweighs any gripes or quibbles I might have had throughout my playthrough, and I eagerly look forward to my next replay of this title in the future. In the meantime, I'll think of Sophelena with fond remembrance of what a journey it was. So an overall score, 9 out of 10, The Rifle, Return of the King. Thank you guys for checking out this retrospective, and make sure you subscribe for upcoming RPG and Suikoden content. The next 2 projects that I'll be dropping will be ranking all of the Suikoden titles from best to worst, and deciding on the top 10 characters within the Suikoden mainline series. Till then, LC signing out. Peace.